Hello everybody and welcome to Ramble Reacts. England beat the Aussies and the Irish qualification hopes are over. It's Saturday 14th of October. I'm Marcus Speller.
And I'm Jim Campbell.
Welcome one and all to Ramble Reacts. We are off the back of an England victory. It feels odd, Jim, to do a Ramble Reacts when England have just played and won. Usually we're in the studio, but we are in our respective homes.
We are, yeah. Should we be doing an easy? Probably not. Probably not for a grizzled 1-0 victory over Australia in a friendly. If we'd beaten them 4-0, I think we might have busted out an easy, but it doesn't feel like it maybe warrants that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Well, I did tweet an easy for those for those who follow me. So if you want the easy, follow me on X. Speaking of X, Jim, formerly known as Twitter, this from John Hyde. Marcus Speller, Jim Campbell, hashtag thoughts and prayers with you both as you try and complete a Ramble Reacts tonight after England 1, Australia 0.
You know what? I would refute the difficulty of that because I think there were actually a lot of positives for England, I have to say.
Mm-hmm. Clean sheet, yeah. Lewis Dunk, I thought was very good in that clearance he had to make. And generally, with what he was tasked with, he was very, very good at it. For me, the standout performer would be Trent Alexander-Arnold. He played in the sort of inverted role where we're kind of becoming accustomed to him playing. And I thought he was superb. I thought he was England's best player. He had a huge hand in the goal with a ball that came into Grealish. And I think, he probably won't be in Gareth Southgate's starting 11 firmly in his mind, but he has shown that he's a really, really good option if he needs to mix things up. Yeah, he was very much playing as a midfielder for most of it in that first hour or so before Kieran Trippier came on. And it was interesting to see England sort of try and do that because a lot of the time it was a back three for England, wasn't it? With Fikayo Tomori being asked to play centre half and also right back at times. There was a sort of right centre half with Trent being given licence to go into the midfield. I know he does that a little bit at club level as well, does old Trent. But you're right. I thought of all the people who played and don't regularly start, which, let's be honest, was pretty much everybody in that starting 11. I know. Yeah, exactly. I mean, even Henderson, the captain. People will think, why on earth was he captain and playing and whatnot, but he has been a regular but not a starter. But I thought Alexander-Arnold, he looked good. He does that, he can switch the play just within an instant and so accurately as well, and it's Beckham-esque, it really is. I remember the days when I remember going to watch Beckham and England a few times at Wembley back in the day, and it's such a weapon, or it's such a good thing to have up your sleeve when you can switch the play, because often that's where the space is. Of course, if the ball's on one side and it can get a bit congested, then boom, off he goes. And a couple of times that Grealish might have taken a better touch, obviously with the goal he did. But yeah, Alexander-Arnold I think is a good option. I think if England are to play him, I would put him just in that midfield, because I think that is a place where England are a touch light, and at right back they're very strong, of course. And I think it looked a bit better when Trippier came on, and Australia got a lot of joy kind of going forward at times. But I think Alexander-Arnold, in a midfield three, and it will be a three if he's in beside Declan Rice, which you would think. I think that's not bad at all, and he offers something that you could argue no other England player does.
Well, absolutely. I think, you've made the point very passionately before, Marcus, that Calvin Phillips keeps getting selected despite not playing at club level, because he does exactly that thing. He offers something that nobody else does. And actually, if that becomes a really sort of essentially chronic issue where he barely plays again all season, and it's ridiculous to expect him to even be kind of fit enough to play at a tournament, then perhaps Alexander-Arnold is there being groomed as the alternative to that. And we often kind of look at these games and think there may be a little bit of, if not a pointless exercise, then a kind of not entirely pleasant one to watch. But this is what you gain out of it, right? This sort of experimentation is where the value comes. And I thought, Alexander-Arnold, as I say, brought some value. It was nice to see Jack Grealish play as a sort of as a real senior man. He took responsibility with the ball quite a lot, and I sort of enjoyed that. And also, Ollie Watkins' performance was really strong. I worried if he might have kind of blotted his copybook a little bit with a miss in the first half. He sort of took it a little bit too wide, and you feel like you'd have scored that for Villa, but he made no mistake with what Jack Grealish thought was going to be his goal.
Grealish didn't look happy, did he? I think he did not. Particularly happy all evening, I might say. I mean, it's. I know we talked about his tricky start to the season due to injury and whatnot. But
he got a massive dead leg, didn't he? Apparently, and
yeah, that's right.
He was saying like it's the worst dead leg he's ever even heard of. And I guess when you've got that much leg in the first place, you are more vulnerable to leg death. Yeah,
can you get a dead calf maybe? Not with his.
I reckon he can do it all, mate.
Yeah.
Things.
Grealish. I'm convinced from the angle that the ball wasn't going to go in. It would have been very close.
I agree.
But either or, for crying out loud, if Watkins
got to Nugent it,
you've absolutely. But it's as I think Jill Scott said. It's like just put it in. I don't worry about all that. I mean, the only thing is that if he puts it in and he's offside, which of course he was well onside.
Yeah.
But yeah, Watkins did absolutely the right thing. Joe Cole described Watkins' position for the goal as the position of maximum opportunity, which I quite like.
I haven't heard that phrase in a little while.
Did Grealish put it into the... I was going to say the corridor of uncertainty, but he's that close to the goal, and the ball is so close to going in. Perhaps that's not a corridor, is it? That is just
no.
He's nearly put the ball in the back of the net. But I was pleased for Watkins. I thought he played well. As Joe Cole himself said, he worked the channels. He's busy. He's lively. He can link a bit more than one or two of the other options, which we spoke about on yesterday's ramble. And he snatched at that one, didn't he? When he went through on goal. I mean, he hit the post. He was unlucky. But Watkins clearly, in the absence of Ivan Toney, is the front runner, if you will, for that.
It's his to lose,
spot
isn't
behind
it?
Harry Kane. Yeah, you would say so.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting that we're talking about Watkins as the understudy from an English point of view. I was sort of disappointed that we had the same with Australia and that they didn't call up Cumdog, because I think if you're going to have a young, kind of untested defence, really youth in terms of their experience together, then you want to be playing against the world's best players, and we've missed an opportunity to see what Carwell, Tomori, and Dunk could have done there, but
I'd forgotten all about him. Did they do some sort of swap?
I forget about him all the time, and every time I remember, I'm delighted, but also like I feel a bit sick.
I know what you mean. I think that's it. Was it not? When Australia played Argentina at the World Cup, when they're all sort of shaking hands at the end, he appeared like shaking Messi's hand. You're like, hang on, was that?
Yeah, he did.
It's just a strange one.
Yes, it was.
I always think.
Oh yes.
I think. Did him and Lyndon Dykes? Did they sort of make a pact and go,
swap
all right,
lives?
You play for them, I'll play for this lot, sort of thing. I don't know.
Maybe.
But
very
on
possible.
Australia, you have to say, Jim, gave a bloody good account of themselves. In fact, they'll go off thinking,
they did.
How have we lost that game? Now, I would say England were marginally better. The stats, certainly the stats in terms of shots, would suggest Australia were, but they hit the post. A great chance, as you mentioned earlier, that Lewis Dunk brilliantly cleared off the line. There was
Dukes had a really good chance in the first half as well. It was really well crafted as well.
Yeah, was it? I mean, the volley was a great effort. Australia caused England a lot of problems, and I think with under Arnold, Australia have really improved going into the World Cup. I know there was concerns, thinking, how on earth have they done it? It was the goalkeeper, what was his name, Redmayne, who his antics in that penalty shootout, of course, managed to get Australia to Qatar, and at the World Cup to go through to the qualifiers, of course. Great win over Denmark and whatnot, and only just edged by Argentina, who would go on to win it. And then since then, they've had some sort of fairly positive results against some Latin American opposition. But coming into this game, all the cliches are there, well set up, well organised, worked hard, but I thought they were better than that. They created chances and just couldn't quite put them away. Often for a side who are well drilled and so on, if you don't have that goal scorer up front, which of course the majority of sides don't, because goal scorers are a rare old thing. It was a shame for them that was their sort of undoing. But Jim, you've got to give them credit, have you not?
Absolutely, yeah. I was very impressed with St Mirren's Kai Bacchus in particular. Maybe sort of doubly motivated, being an Australian man playing in Scotland, but he was very, very impressive. And yeah, they were very, very organised, as you said. Sort of all the cliches were true, essentially. But I think they played really at the ceiling of that. And they, like you say, they will be kicking themselves that they haven't taken something that I've felt like they were good for a goal. And there were times as well in the last 10 minutes where I felt like it almost seemed a little bit like England were assuming they were going to close this out, and Australia sort of grew in the game a little bit, made some chances, unlucky right at the end to not get a corner that I think they should have had, and they looked capable of causing England some damage, really. But obviously it wasn't to be. Well, that's good.
They look good at set pieces as well. The Aussies, as I say, they were unlucky, and as you mentioned, had some chance. It was nice to see René Meulenstein in there being interviewed at half time. He was having a good old. He was just enjoying it, wasn't he?
He was like grinning from ear to ear, just having a lovely, lovely old time.
By the way, I should just say that we've just been passed a note that's saying that the Cumdog is currently playing in India, and he tried a Robert Pires, Thierry Henry type penalty last week, or should I say Mauro Icardi, and they fluffed it as well. They messed it up.
Good. So, it's the fitting tribute, isn't it, to get it wrong.
He's still on form.
Yeah. Again, ridiculous that he's not been called up, but what can we do from here? We're just the little guy.
We can only just wade in with our opinions. Some of the others who were playing for England tonight, who got chances, you mentioned Lewis Dunk there. I think Lewis Dunk looks pretty assured in an England shirt.
He does, yeah.
We know that Dunk is not... what is Dunk? He's in his 30s. He's playing the best football of his career. Dunk is, he's not so of the quality of, say, John Stones is when it comes to centre halves, but he's a very functional, very solid defender. We know, of course, that in the last few seasons he's really learned to play with the ball at his feet out of the back. Tomori, pretty solid stuff. I mean, England were a little bit vulnerable. I think perhaps the personnel, fair credit to the Australians, the way they played, and the tactical setup for England caused a little bit of confusion. I thought Colwill, again, did okay. But really, the positions in front of them, if you're looking at, say, Conor Gallagher, who I don't think Gallagher will start for England. I think he's one of probably on the fringes of the squad. I think if you're James Ward-Prowse, even though they're a different type of midfielder, I think James Ward-Prowse will feel a bit aggrieved not to be there.
Yeah.
But Conor Gallagher is perhaps a bit more sort of squad filler, which sounds a bit harsh to him because he's a decent player, but I think that's realistically where he's going to be, unless you disagree, Jim.
No, I do agree with you on that. I think actually Gallagher was probably just edged in ahead of Ward-Prowse for reasons I personally am not sure about. I thought he was actually kind of lucky to stay on the pitch tonight. I think if that had been a competitive game, he might have been sent off. He was quite scalesy in the challenge on a couple of occasions. But yeah, I think Colwill had a bit of a mixed evening, didn't he? He had some really great moments and a couple of sort of misplaced passes that weren't so good. But I think it's probably just a young player getting up to speed with playing in the England environment. So I think there's certainly he warrants further inclusion and more of a look. I felt for Jared Bowen a bit. I think the game passed him by a little bit. I think he didn't. Tomori had a similar evening in a sense, in that essentially England didn't really use their right flank all that much, and neither of those players had a huge amount to do. So again, hopefully we'll get a chance to see more of both those players. But yeah, otherwise I would agree. Yeah, it was all.
It's a tricky one for someone like Bowen because, as you say, that type of position, you want to do something, you want to create something, you want to score, you want to assist, and if you don't, you feel like, will I get another audition? Because it can be quick at international football. It is almost like the old trials you used to have, when you're a schoolboy. If you didn't perform or you were in a team and you weren't getting passed to or whatever, then that was your chance. Now, obviously, Bowen has been called up before, but there is a lot of competition in those places. But I mean, on the other side, though, I didn't think Jack Grealish had a particularly great night. He looks a bit off the pace, and obviously moment of quality which would ultimately set up Watkins. Grealish will be in contention to start against Italy, of course, but I'm not sure if he will. I mean, Marcus Rashford came on for Grealish, and Grealish, he has, as we mentioned earlier, he hasn't played that much football, of course, due to that injury and whatnot. So he'll be pleased to get some minutes under his belt. But when Rashford came on, you suddenly saw the pace pick up a bit. He was beating his man down the flank. And the one thing, something about Grealish, I think Grealish is a great player. I think he's a really handy player for England to have. He's very, very predictable, though. He always cuts back onto that right foot, and I know people will immediately say, "Oh yeah, but how many other players do that?" And then people will immediately say, "But Iron Robin did okay in his career," or something like that. It was very different wingers, but Grealish, I find that he does that a lot. Now, I suppose I appreciate that when he's been playing for Manchester City, that's where he will have learned it. You make sure you keep the ball, but I wonder with Grealish if his fitness is there just to go at the fullback a little bit more, be a little bit more expansive. But then I might be being a bit harsh because we know he can do it. He has been injured a bit, and he said he wasn't fit. So I don't know whether he'll start against Italy. I have a feeling that it'll be Phil Foden on that side.
Yeah, I would think so, especially given with Jack Grealish having this appalling dead leg or whatever it was. I think starting him twice in a week is unlikely, isn't it? So I would think it'll be Foden, Kane, and one other. I suppose we don't know. I don't really feel too clear about who's going to start on the right.
Yeah, or he could play Foden on the right, of course, and maybe start Rashford as well. But the point is that Saka's not there. Sterling is not in the squad yet again. There is a chance for them. So maybe we will see Grealish. Grealish did start against Italy before in Naples, but that seems a long, long time ago now, of course.
Yeah,
was there any other performances, Jim, in the England side against Australia that perhaps caught your eye or concerned you?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, we haven't mentioned James Maddison yet, who I thought had a really good game, and is in an interesting situation because he started in midfield, and for a long time we thought that just Southgate didn't fancy a player like that playing in a system like that. And now I think the danger is that he's essentially playing where Jude Bellingham will play, and Bellingham will start in every important game. So it's an interesting one. But I thought he had some brilliant moments. The through ball for Ollie Watkins in the chance he ultimately couldn't quite put away was absolutely laser guided, exceptional. He was really, really available, really busy. I don't really think he could have done a lot more in the reality of how the game went in terms of staying in there. It's going to be very difficult, I think, for him to sort of break into the starting 11 for the reasons we've just been over, but he absolutely repeatedly has demonstrated to Southgate in the opportunities that he's had that he can bring a lot of value to that squad.
Yeah, he could have the. I know it doesn't quite work like this, but if you will, he could have the number 12 or number 13 jersey in that squad.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
But there's so much of that in this team, and it's such a joy, isn't it? Like Phil Foden not necessarily starting, Sterling and Saka not even in the squad for different reasons, but it's still still so heartening, isn't it? Or it will be until we don't win.
We just won, Jim. What are you talking about? Yeah, in a friendly. But yeah, I know what you mean. I think if you're Raheem Sterling, you might be a little bit annoyed that you're not there. But I suppose the argument would be Southgate knows Sterling very, very well indeed, and so
I think this is it. Yeah,
So there we are. Elsewhere last night, Ireland 0, Greece 2. Ireland's Euro 2024 hopes were ended by those Greeks. And let's be honest, Ireland's hopes were pretty much ended before this anyway. Shay Given described it as a very, very low point. He said it's simply not good enough. Where do Republic of Ireland go from here? I don't know. 5 defeats in 6 qualifiers, Jim. The Kenny project is not yielding any results at all.
No.
If you think about the previous qualification for the World Cup, it was pretty drab. Under Kenny, remember a home loss against Luxembourg, which was a particularly low point as well. This time round, they're in a group with France and Netherlands. Okay, it's going to be tough. But you've got to do what Greece have done. You've got to just keep on going, see how long you can keep them going for. Because, France have done Greece a solid there by beating the Netherlands 2-1 last night. But I think what have Ireland lost home and away to Greece, and it started quite well for Ireland. They lost 1-0 at home to France, and that wonderful Mike Mannion save when I forget who it was from the corner, and everyone thought, oh my God, we were so close to getting a decent result against France. Here we go, this is it. And you look at those results on paper, and the worrying thing for Ireland is, it's not just you don't qualify, is that you go down the pots, and the pots are crucial. Yeah. Absolutely crucial. Absolutely. And here they are again, and I don't know that much about the I haven't watched Ireland that much and what the conversations are going on there, but you would fear for Kenny and his job as Ireland manager.
Yeah, I think so. Given the it's the lack of progress, isn't it? And I know they're in a difficult spot. Obviously, they've got young Evan Ferguson coming through. Looks like he's going to be an absolute superstar, but that isn't sort of going to be enough. Certainly not now. And
George Weah never played at a World Cup, mate.
Well, yeah. But you just think, don't you, in a situation like this, where do you turn after that? Do you go to someone? Do you get a grizzled old veteran in? Do you give Fizzer a shout? Do you
Fizzer? Yeah, that is.
He's probably sending a CV in. I know it's offensive, but what else do you do? What suggestions have you got? You raised the idea.
Fizzer. Not Fizzer. Jedward would be more appropriate than Fizzer. Like, it's outrageous.
Look, we know that he's lurking, and if a job comes up that involves, not exactly working full time, he's going to throw his hat into the ring.
Bloody Nora, Jim.
I don't know how to fix the Irish national team's problems. If you want a serious dissection of what's gone wrong and how to fix it, I am not your man for that. You know that. You've introduced this idea. Fizzer was inevitable.
Just say Roy Keane. Just say Roy Keane, and we can all move on.
All right, Roy Keane.
There you go. Stick a rocket up them. That's what they maybe need. I don't know. If they do. It is like you're right. Where do they go? Like it's a shite situation. There's no two ways about it. So yeah, I mean, elsewhere in the group, France beat the Netherlands 2-1. Talking of rockets, what about that second goal from Kylian Mbappe?
Yeah, I mean the first goal was magnificent. I feel like
first goal.
He's such a brilliant player that he'll do this fairly often. He'll score a brilliant goal and then score a sort of super brilliant goal, and everyone forgets about the first brilliant goal. He's just got so much in his locker. Is he moved into fourth in the all-time top scorers list for France now? And he's 23? Is he? It's absolutely phenomenal stuff.
He's still got to catch Olivier Giroud, of course, Jim, which is the gold standard.
He does, of course,
for France goal scorers.
But who wouldn't want to bear down on such a handsome specimen?
I can't think of anybody. When obviously England against Australia, it was experimental. It was a bit stodgy, blah 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 blah. And you think, but feeling pretty good about England ahead of the Euros next summer, of course. And then you see Mbappe do that, and you kind of go, yeah.
Just really got to hope someone else knocks them out.
I wonder what you were going to say there. Yeah, yeah. Well, Switzerland did in the last Euros. They did everybody solid.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's not go over old ground, for crying out loud. Talking of old things, though, Cristiano Ronaldo scored his 125th international goal in Portugal's 3-2 win against Slovakia. Jim, the big takeaway is that only one of his goals was a penalty.
Yeah, huge. So he's, maybe he's he finally found the elixir of youth, or the fountain of youth that we know he's been privately looking for in his spare time.
Come on. What is he? Drinking, ingesting, like goodness knows what he's doing to try and stay young.
Yeah, it would be all kinds of terrifying stuff that we don't really want to hear about. I saw an amazing stat that I can only half remember, but I'm just going to regurgitate anyway, which is about the amount of goals he scored. It was that good. It was the amount of goals he'd scored for Portugal over 30, and it was higher than a lot of nations' top scorers' numbers.
73.
It was something it was 73. That's it. Yeah, 73. Yeah. You just found it. Look at that.
Well, if you're going to remember half of that, he's only scored 7 goals since he turned 30 for Portugal. 73 goals since he turned 30 for Portugal. As you, that's more than Harry Kane for England, easily. Easily.
Yeah,
it's utterly absurd.
It's more than Harry Kane will get near. Absolutely mad.
And only 68 of them have been penalties. Old Penaldo.
The other ones were obviously rebounds from penalties.
That's right, yeah. It is worth remembering. The trouble is, like, because he's such a silly sausage, you kind of want to, you want to take the piss out of him. Basically, is what you want to do. And then you see the numbers put in front of you. You go, my giddy aunt, that ain't bad, is it?
It's something about the quality of his character, though, isn't it? He is like Narcissus himself, sort of like reincarnated. It's hilarious how much he loves himself. His record speaks for itself. He doesn't need to be so outwardly insecure about it. It feels like he needs the entire world to reassure him about how brilliant he is all the time. It's weird, and it makes him quite funny, as well as being just this kind of this figure so good at his sport that it's almost difficult to process him.
Bloody hellfire! Another one. Romelu Lukaku also scored for Belgium last night.
Bad news for Scott McTominay.
Edging away from Scott McTominay in the top goal scorers charts for qualification. Still all to play for there. But, McTominay's got a little bit to do to get there. Speaking of Scott McTominay, the Scottish FA have written to UEFA to seek clarification about why his free kick goal was disallowed in Spain. They're really not giving this up, are they?
No.
We're about
they're gonna ask for a
4
replay.
steps away from them asking for a replay. Yeah, exactly. I mean, even was it John McGinn was saying, we needed clarification. I understand there was a bit of confusion, but we can all agree that the right decision was made, though. If it was the wrong decision, I could understand if people were a bit pissed off. But he said, if you look at it, his leg's offside. It's incredibly harsh. And it's like, lads, I know you really want this. I really, really do. And the neutral wanted it. Oh, blah, 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 blah. It's rightly ruled out, that goal.
Don't lose the next 5 games because you're annoyed about this.
Oh, my goodness. Imagine, oh, dear. Yeah. Crazy. So there we are, everybody. So, Jim, we are in the right in the mix of international weekend, of course. How are you going to be celebrating the rest of the weekend? A sort of a feast of foods from around the continent, perhaps?
Probably just cartwheels. You know how enthusiastic I am about the international break, so I'll probably just be bouncing around off the walls.
Yeah.
Bit of
Cartwheels
parkour.
and custard creams.
Yeah, why not?
The Jim Campbell story. Okay. Well, there we are.
How about you? You don't have your face paint on?
No, I sort of scrubbed it off before recording, but don't you worry, it'll be back. I am going to the game on Tuesday night for Italy, so I'm looking forward to that very much. Although, obviously not the weekend, but maybe I might leave the gate open till Wednesday morning. I don't know.
Oh, wow.
We'll see.
Huge news.
See, yeah.
Snuck out.
Yeah, well, I haven't decided yet. The country's got to function, and we're in we're in a bad state, so we need all the workforce we can get. Anyway, enough of the bollocks, everybody. Thank you very much for listening to today's Ramble Reacts. Myself, Jim, Pete, and Vish will be back on Monday, of course, to talk about the internationals that are happening today and on Sunday. Find us on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at Football Ramble, and remember to subscribe on your podcast app. Thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you.
And thank you, England. See you soon.
Thank you for watching a clip from the Football Ramble podcast. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss an upload. A single upload. Don't miss out on the uploads. The uploads are important.